The wedding invitation sat on Nathan Bennett's mahogany desk like a ticking bomb, and the worst part was knowing he had to be the best man at his own personal execution. Nathan stared at the cream-colored cardstock, fingers drumming against the leather armrest of his office chair. His best friend, Marcus Sterling, was getting married in 6 months, and that meant spending considerable time with Marcus's entire family, including Tessa Sterling, the one woman Nathan had spent the last 8 years carefully avoiding while simultaneously being unable to forget. He had built an empire in commercial real estate, turning distressed properties into luxury developments across 3 states. At 32, Nathan Bennett was worth north of $40 million, drove cars that cost more than most people's houses, and had been featured in Forbes twice. None of that mattered when it came to the fundamental rule he had established the moment he realized what he felt. Marcus's little sister was completely off limits. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Bennett, Marcus Sterling is here to see you." Nathan straightened his tie, schooling his features into the easy confidence that had carried him through countless business negotiations. "Send him in." Marcus burst through the door with his characteristic energy, all broad shoulders and infectious enthusiasm. They had met freshman year at Northwestern, 2 scholarship kids determined to prove they belonged among the trust fund babies. While Nathan had gone into real estate development, Marcus had built a successful career in sports marketing, representing some of the biggest names in professional athletics. "There's my best man." Marcus grabbed Nathan in a bear hug that would have crushed a smaller man. "Did you get the invitation? Claire is already driving me crazy with seating charts and flower arrangements. I swear, planning this wedding is harder than negotiating LeBron's endorsement deals." Nathan forced a laugh, gesturing for Marcus to sit. "Congratulations again, man. Claire is incredible. You are punching above your weight class. Do not I know it?" Marcus settled into the leather chair across from Nathan's desk, loosening his tie. "Listen, I need to talk to you about the wedding party. Claire's bridesmaids are set, and I've got you as best man, obviously. But there is going to be a lot of pre-wedding stuff. Engagement parties, the rehearsal dinner, probably some other things Claire will spring on us. The whole family is getting involved." Nathan's jaw tightened imperceptibly. "The whole family?" "Yeah, my parents are thrilled. And Tessa is flying in from Portland next week. She is going to be one of Claire's bridesmaids." Marcus ran a hand through his dark hair, oblivious to the way Nathan's posture had gone rigid. "Actually, that is part of what I wanted to talk to you about. Tessa is moving back to Chicago permanently." The words hit Nathan like a physical blow, though he kept his expression neutral. "Is that right?" She got offered a position at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, head of their new trauma psychology program. It is a huge deal for her career. Marcus's face lit up with brotherly pride. "She has been doing amazing work in Portland with veterans suffering from PTSD, but this opportunity is next level. Plus, I think she misses being close to family. She has been gone for what, 4 years now? Something like that." Nathan's voice came out steadier than he felt. 4 years, 2 months, and 16 days, but who was counting? Anyway, Claire thought it would be nice if you could help Tessa get settled when she moves back. You know the city better than anyone, and you have got connections everywhere. Maybe help her find a place to live. I know you have got properties all over." Nathan should have said no, should have made up an excuse about his schedule, recommended a real estate agent, anything to maintain the distance he had carefully constructed. Instead, he heard himself say, "Sure, I can help out." Marcus grinned, completely unaware he had just asked his best friend to spend extended time with the woman Nathan had been half in love with for nearly a decade. "You are the best, man. Seriously. Tessa will probably reach out to you in the next few days." She is coming in next week to start apartment hunting. After Marcus left, Nathan stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office, looking out over the Chicago skyline. The city stretched before him, all steel and glass and possibility. He had conquered this city, built his fortune from nothing but determination and calculated risks. But Tessa Sterling had always been the one thing his money and influence could not touch. He still remembered the first time he saw her, really saw her. It was the summer after his sophomore year, and he had gone home with Marcus for a weekend. Tessa had been 17, all long limbs and artistic intensity, paint splattered on her jeans as she worked on a canvas in the backyard. Marcus had made introductions, and she had looked up at Nathan with those devastating green eyes and smiled politely before returning to her work. He had not thought much of it then. But over the years, as he and Marcus grew closer, as Nathan became a fixture at Sterling family gatherings, he watched Tessa grow from a talented teenager into an extraordinary woman. She had studied psychology, focusing on trauma and crisis intervention. While Nathan was chasing millions, Tessa was dedicating her life to healing people who had survived the worst moments of their lives. The last time he had seen her was at Marcus's 30th birthday party, 4 years ago. She had just finished her doctorate and was about to move to Portland. They had ended up on the balcony of the restaurant, away from the noise of the celebration, talking for hours about everything and nothing. The city lights had reflected in her eyes, and for one dangerous moment Nathan had almost closed the distance between them, almost kissed her the way he had wanted to for years. Then Marcus had called them back inside for cake, and the moment shattered. 2 days later, Tessa left for Portland. Nathan had convinced himself it was for the best, that the distance would finally cure him of this impossible situation. Now she was coming back, and he had just agreed to help her find an apartment. Nathan laughed darkly at his own idiocy. 8 years of carefully maintained boundaries, about to be demolished because he could not say no to his best friend. His phone buzzed 3 days later with an unfamiliar Portland number. "Nathan, it is Tessa Sterling. Marcus gave me your number. I hope it is okay that I am calling." Her voice was exactly as he remembered, warm and slightly husky, with an undertone of genuine kindness that made it impossible not to want to keep listening. "Tessa, of course. Marcus mentioned you are making the move back to Chicago. Congratulations on the position at Northwestern Memorial." "Thank you. I am really excited about it, though I will admit the logistics are a bit overwhelming. Marcus said you might be able to help with the apartment hunt. If you are too busy, I completely understand. I know you are running a major company." "I have got time," Nathan lied. His schedule was packed with acquisitions and development meetings, but he would make time. "When are you coming to town?" "I am flying in this Friday. I have got appointments to see a few places on Saturday, but honestly, I do not even know which neighborhoods to prioritize. I have been gone long enough that I am out of touch with the housing market." "Where is the hospital located?" Nathan was already pulling up property listings on his computer, his mind automatically calculating commute times and neighborhood amenities. "Streeterville, right off Michigan Avenue." "Okay, so you will want something with easy access to the loop, but probably quieter than right downtown. What is your budget?" There was a pause. "Well, the salary is good, but I am a trauma psychologist, not a real estate mogul. I was thinking maybe $2,000 a month." Nathan nearly laughed. That would not get her anything decent in the neighborhoods he was considering. "Let me see what I can find. I've got some properties that might work. Why do not you let me take you around on Saturday? I will show you a few options." "You really do not have to do that. I know you are busy." "Tessa, I insist. Besides, Marcus would kill me if I did not take care of his little sister." "I am 28, Nathan, not exactly little anymore. There was something in her tone, a hint of challenge that made his pulse quicken. Fair point. I will pick you up Saturday morning. Where are you staying? With my parents in Evanston. I will be there at 9. After they hung up, Nathan sat back in his chair, wondering what he had just set in motion. But it was too late for second thoughts now. Saturday morning dawned clear and unseasonably warm for early March. Nathan drove his Tesla through the tree-lined streets of Evanston, trying to ignore the way his heart rate had kicked up as he approached the Sterling family home. It was a modest colonial, well-maintained but unremarkable, the kind of middle-class stability both he and Marcus had grown up with. Tessa was waiting on the front porch when he pulled up, and Nathan had to remind himself to breathe. 4 years had been kind to her. She wore dark jeans and a forest green sweater that matched her eyes, her auburn hair longer than he remembered, falling past her shoulders in loose waves. She was beautiful in an understated way that had nothing to do with calculation or effort, the kind of beauty that snuck up on you and then refused to let go. She climbed into the passenger seat with an easy smile. "Hey, stranger. Nice car. Very environmentally conscious for a real estate tycoon. I try to balance out the carbon footprint from all my evil development projects." He pulled away from the curb, acutely aware of her presence in the confined space. She smelled like something floral and clean, jasmine maybe. "Marcus told me you just completed that mixed-use development in River North. The one with affordable housing units integrated with luxury condos." Nathan glanced at her, surprised. "You have been following my projects. I like to know what my brother's friends are up to. Plus, that development got written up in several urban planning journals. It is a really innovative approach to addressing housing inequality. I did not realize trauma psychologists read urban planning journals." Trauma psychologists understand that stable housing is fundamental to mental health recovery. Your work actually intersects with mine more than you might think. They spent the drive downtown discussing the relationship between environmental design and psychological well-being, and Nathan found himself relaxing into the conversation. This was always how it had been with Tessa. She had a way of making complex topics feel accessible, of finding unexpected connections between disparate fields. Talking to her felt like coming home. He had lined up 4 properties to show her, starting with a 1-bedroom in Lincoln Park. The apartment was nice, recently renovated with good natural light, but Tessa seemed unenthusiastic as they walked through. "It is lovely," she said politely, "but it is way too expensive. I cannot afford $3,500 a month. The listing says $2,200. Nathan." She fixed him with a knowing look. "A 1-bedroom in Lincoln Park with this much space and these finishes does not rent for $2,200. What are you doing?" He had hoped she would not notice the discount. "I own the building. I can set whatever price I want." "That is not how business works, and we both know it. I appreciate the gesture, but I cannot take charity from you." "It is not charity. Consider it a favor for Marcus. Marcus does not need you to subsidize his sister's housing." She crossed her arms, and Nathan recognized the stubborn set of her jaw. The Sterling siblings shared that particular brand of pride. "Show me places I can actually afford." The second and third apartments were more in her realistic price range, but they were also cramped, poorly maintained, in neighborhoods that would add an hour to her commute. Nathan watched Tessa's shoulders slump a little more with each showing, and it took everything in him not to just offer to buy her a damn condo outright. "I have one more place," he said as they walked back to his car after the third disappointing showing. "It is in Gold Coast, so I know what you are going to say about the price, but just look at it before you decide." The building was one of Nathan's personal favorites, a converted brownstone that maintained its historic character while offering modern amenities. The unit he showed her was a spacious one-bedroom on the third floor, with exposed brick, original hardwood floors, and huge windows overlooking a quiet tree-lined street. Tessa fell in love with it immediately. He could see it in the way her face lit up as she explored the space, running her fingers along the brick wall, looking out the windows at the view. "This is perfect," she breathed. "It is absolutely perfect, and there is no way I can afford it." Nathan had been expecting this. "The tenant who was living here is moving out at the end of the month. I have been planning to renovate and raise the rent, but that means it would sit empty for at least 6 weeks during construction. If you are willing to live with some disruption, you can have it at a significant discount until the renovations are done, and then we can renegotiate based on the improvements." It was not entirely a lie. He had been considering updates to the unit. He had just invented the timeline to make the numbers work for Tessa's budget. She studied him carefully, those green eyes searching his face for the catch. "How significant a discount are we talking about?" $2,000 a month until renovations are complete. "And then?" "We will figure it out. Maybe $2,800 after." Still well below market rate, but close enough that she might accept it. Tessa walked through the apartment again, and Nathan could practically see her weighing pride against practicality. Finally, she turned to him with a resigned smile. "You are a terrible negotiator, you know that. No successful businessman would make a deal this bad. Maybe I am just a good friend." Something flickered across her face, too quick for him to read. "Okay, I will take it with 2 conditions. 1, I want a proper lease with normal terms, nothing that gives me special treatment. And 2, you let me buy you lunch to say thank you." "Deal." They ended up at a small Italian place in the neighborhood, tucked into a corner booth as the lunch rush swirled around them. Nathan ordered carbonara while Tessa got the capre salad, and they fell into the easy rhythm of conversation that had always come naturally between them. "So tell me about Portland," Nathan said. "Marcus mentioned you were working with veterans." Tessa's expression softened with the passion she brought to her work. "It was incredible, honestly. The program I developed focused on combat veterans dealing with PTSD and moral injury. Traditional talk therapy often is not enough for people who have experienced trauma at that level, so we incorporated experiential therapies. Art, music, even outdoor adventure experiences. The goal was to help them reconnect with themselves and the world in a way that felt safe." "It sounds like you made a real difference." "I hope so. The statistics on veteran suicide are heartbreaking. If I could help even a few people find their way back from that edge, it felt worth it." She took a sip of water, studying him over the rim of her glass. "But I am ready for something new. The Northwestern position will let me develop a trauma response program for the whole hospital system. It is a chance to create something that could help thousands of people." "You have always been driven by that," Nathan observed. "Helping people. Even back when you were in high school, I remember you volunteering at that crisis hotline." "You remember that?" "I remember a lot of things about you." The words hung between them, heavier than he had intended. Tessa looked down at her salad, a slight flush creeping across her cheeks. "I remember things about you too," she said quietly. "I remember you and Marcus staying up until 3 in the morning studying for organic chemistry, and you bringing over donuts for my mom when she was going through chemo, and the way you always treated me like an actual person instead of just your friend's annoying little sister." "You were never annoying. That is revisionist history. I was absolutely annoying when I was 17 and convinced I knew everything about art and philosophy." Nathan grinned. "Okay, maybe a little annoying, but in an endearing way." They lingered over lunch far longer than necessary, conversation flowing from her work to his latest projects to Marcus's upcoming wedding. It felt dangerously like a date, and Nathan had to keep reminding himself that it was not, that it could not be. "Claire seems great," Tessa said as they finally headed back to his car. "I have not gotten to spend much time with her yet, but anyone who can handle my brother's chaos deserves a medal." They balance each other well. Marcus brings spontaneity, Claire brings structure. It works. "What about you? Marcus said you have been single for a while. No one special." Nathan kept his eyes on the road, navigating through downtown traffic. "I date, nothing serious. Building a company does not leave much time for relationships." "That is a convenient excuse." He shot her a look. "Excuse me. I am a psychologist, Nathan. I recognize avoidance patterns. You are one of the most successful people I know, which means you are excellent at prioritizing what matters to you. If you wanted a serious relationship, your schedule would not stop you." "Maybe I have not met the right person. Maybe." Tessa was quiet for a moment. "Or maybe you are afraid of what it would cost you to let someone in that completely." Her insight cut too close to the truth. Nathan had dated plenty over the years, beautiful women who were perfectly nice and ultimately forgettable. He had told himself it was about his career, about not having time for the complications of a serious relationship. But the truth was simpler and infinitely more complicated. He had been half in love with an unavailable woman for 8 years, and everyone else paled in comparison. He dropped Tessa back at her parents' house that afternoon with promises to send over the lease documents early next week. As he watched her walk up to the front door, Marcus appeared from inside, calling out a greeting to Nathan before wrapping his sister in a hug. Nathan drove away with the image of them together burned into his mind, a visual reminder of exactly why he needed to keep his feelings locked down. Marcus was not just his best friend. He was the brother Nathan had never had, the person who had believed in him when they were broke college kids with more ambition than sense. Betraying that friendship over romantic feelings was not an option, no matter how much Tessa Sterling made his carefully controlled world feel insufficient. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of activity. Nathan threw himself into work with renewed intensity, trying to use exhaustion as a buffer against thoughts of Tessa. It worked until Marcus called to invite him to a small dinner party at his apartment. "Just family and close friends," Marcus said. "Tessa is in town for a few days to finalize some paperwork with the hospital, and Mom wanted everyone together. Plus, Claire wants you to meet her parents before the wedding stuff gets crazy." Nathan almost declined, but that would raise questions he did not want to answer. He showed up at Marcus's apartment in Lincoln Park with a bottle of expensive wine and his best neutral expression. Tessa answered the door. She wore a simple black dress that somehow looked both casual and elegant, her hair pulled back in a loose bun. The sight of her punched the air from Nathan's lungs. "Hey," she said with a warm smile. "Come on in. Warning, my mother has been cooking for 3 days and is convinced everyone is going to starve, so prepare to eat your weight in lasagna." The apartment was full of people and noise and laughter. Marcus's parents, Richard and Patricia Sterling, greeted Nathan with the easy affection of people who had known him for over a decade. Claire's parents were there too, along with Marcus's younger cousin, and a few college friends Nathan vaguely recognized. Dinner was chaotic and wonderful, the kind of big family gathering Nathan rarely experienced anymore. His own parents had retired to Florida years ago, and while they talked regularly, visits were infrequent. Being surrounded by the Sterling family's warmth reminded him of what he had been missing. He ended up seated next to Tessa at the dinner table, acutely aware of every time her shoulder brushed his, every shared smile across the conversation. She told stories about Portland, about her patience without breaking confidentiality, painting pictures of resilience and recovery that had the whole table captivated. Tessa has always been the storyteller of the family, Patricia said proudly. Even as a little girl, she could make the most mundane events sound like grand adventures. That is because I had to compete with Marcus's athletic exploits, Tessa countered. Do you know how hard it is to make anyone care about your art project when your brother just scored the winning touchdown? I always cared about your art, Nathan said before he could stop himself. That painting you did senior year, the one of the lake at dawn, I still think about that piece. Tessa turned to him, surprise evident in her expression. You remember that? It was beautiful, melancholic but hopeful at the same time. You captured something true about liminal moments, about the space between what was and what is coming. The conversation moved on, but Nathan felt Tessa's gaze linger on him, thoughtful and assessing. After dinner, people drifted into different rooms. Nathan found himself on the balcony, looking out over the city lights when Tessa joined him. You are being weird, she said without preamble. Excuse me. Tonight. You have barely looked at me all evening except for that comment about my painting, and even now you are standing as far away from me as you can while still technically sharing this balcony. She moved closer, forcing him to acknowledge her presence. Did I do something to upset you? No, of course not. Then what is going on? I thought we had a nice time when you helped me find an apartment, but now you are acting like I have a contagious disease. Nathan ran a hand through his hair, frustration and longing warring inside him. I am not trying to be weird, I am just trying to be appropriate. Appropriate how? Tessa. Her name came out rougher than he intended. You are Marcus's sister. There are boundaries that need to be maintained. She studied him in the dim light, and he could practically see her analytical mind working through the subtext of his words. When understanding dawned, her eyes widened slightly. Oh, the single syllable hung between them, loaded with implications. Yeah, Nathan said quietly. So I am trying to be respectful of those boundaries. For everyone's sake. How long? Does it matter? Yes, it matters. How long, Nathan? He should have lied, should have downplayed it, but something about the way she looked at him made honesty feel like the only option. Your brother's 30th birthday party, when we talked on the balcony for 3 hours. That is when I knew for sure, though if I am being completely honest, probably longer than that. 4 years, Tessa breathed. You have been feeling this for 4 years and never said anything. What was I supposed to say? I am in love with my best friend's sister, the one person in the world who should be completely off limits. That would have gone over great. You are in love with me. Nathan closed his eyes, realizing what he had just admitted. I should not have said that. But you did. Tessa moved closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume, feel the warmth radiating from her skin. Nathan, look at me. He forced himself to meet her gaze, expecting to see pity or uncomfortable rejection. Instead, he saw something that looked dangerously like hope. Why do you think I moved to Portland? She asked softly. I had job offers in Chicago, good ones, but I left because being around you was becoming impossible. Because every family gathering, every time you looked at me and then looked away like you were forcing yourself, it hurt. I told myself the distance would help, that I would get over whatever this was. Did you? His voice was barely above a whisper. Get over it. No, did you? Not even close. They stood there in the Chicago night, the city sprawling below them, years of suppressed feeling crackling in the air between them. Nathan knew he should step back, should reinforce those boundaries he had just articulated. But Tessa was looking at him like he was something precious and unexpected, and his carefully maintained control was crumbling. "This is a terrible idea," he said, even as he reached out to tuck a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Probably," she agreed, but she did not move away. "Marcus will kill me. Marcus will get over it." "Will he?" Tessa caught his hand where it lingered near her face, pressing his palm against her cheek. "My brother loves you like family, and he loves me. Once he gets past the initial shock, he will understand. He will have to." "You sound awfully confident about that." "I am not confident about anything right now, except that I have spent 4 years trying to convince myself I did not feel this way about you, and I am done pretending." She turned her head, pressing a kiss to his palm that sent electricity straight through him. "The question is, are you?" Nathan knew this was the moment. He could pull back, make some excuse about the wine or the nostalgic atmosphere, rebuild those walls and maintain the status quo. It would be the safe choice, the responsible choice. He kissed her instead. Tessa melted into him with a soft sound of surprise and relief, her hands coming up to grip his shoulders. The kiss was everything 4 years of want and restraint had built it up to be, tender and desperate at the same time. She tasted like the tiramisu they had for dessert, and something uniquely herself, and Nathan felt like he was finally breathing after years of holding his breath. When they finally broke apart, both slightly dazed, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "We need to tell Marcus," he said. "Soon, before this goes any further." "Agreed. But maybe not tonight. Can we just have this for a little while before we deal with the complications?" Nathan knew he should insist on honesty immediately, but the selfish part of him wanted exactly what she was offering. A bubble of time where this new fragile thing between them could exist without external pressure. "Tomorrow," he compromised. "I will talk to him tomorrow." They stayed on the balcony for another hour, talking in low voices, stealing kisses when they were sure no one was watching. It felt like being teenagers sneaking around, except they were two adults making a choice that could fundamentally alter their most important relationships. When Nathan finally left that night, Marcus walked him to the door with a bare hug and oblivious smile. "Thanks for coming, man. It means a lot to have everyone together." Guilt twisted in Nathan's gut. "Always. That is what family is for." "Exactly." "Hey, I know I already asked you to help Tessa with the apartment stuff, but would you mind also keeping an eye on her when she moves back? She acts all independent, but I worry about her being in a new city alone." The irony was almost painful. "I will look out for her, I promise." Nathan drove home through empty streets, replaying the evening in his mind. He had kissed Tessa Sterling. After years of denial and distance, he had finally admitted what he felt, and miraculously, she felt the same way. It should have been a moment of pure triumph. Instead, he could not shake the image of Marcus's trusting smile, completely unaware that his best friend had just crossed a line that might change everything between them. The next morning, Nathan called Marcus before he could lose his nerve. "Hey, you free for lunch? I need to talk to you about something." They met at a sports bar near Marcus's office, all exposed brick and big screen televisions showing highlights from last night's games. It was the kind of place they had been going to for years, comfortable and familiar. Nathan wondered if this would be the last time they could do this without awkwardness hanging between them. Marcus ordered a burger and fries, completely relaxed. "What is going on? You sounded serious on the phone." Nathan took a breath, trying to find the right words. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me out before you react." "Okay, now you are scaring me. What happened? Is the company in trouble?" "No, nothing like that. It is personal." Nathan met his friend's eyes directly, refusing to hide behind euphemisms or half-truths. "I have developed feelings for Tessa. Strong feelings. And she feels the same way. We want to pursue a relationship, but I needed you to hear it from me first." Marcus went very still, his expression unreadable. For a long moment he just stared at Nathan, processing. Then he leaned back in his chair, running both hands over his face. How long, for me? Honestly, years. But neither of us acted on it until last night. Last night, at my apartment, you made a move on my sister at my dinner party. She made the move, technically. But yes. Nathan kept his voice steady, refusing to show how terrified he was of losing this friendship. I know this is not ideal. I know you probably want to punch me right now. But I need you to understand that I would never disrespect Tessa or treat this casually. She matters to me, Marcus. She has mattered to me for a long time. Marcus shook his head, looking genuinely lost. I do not know what to say. You are my best friend. Tessa is my little sister. Those are supposed to be separate parts of my life. I know. Do you? Marcus's voice had an edge now. Do you understand what you are asking me to be okay with? If this does not work out, if you break her heart, I lose both of you. And if it does work out, I have to watch my best friend date my sister, which is its own kind of weird. I am not going to break her heart. You cannot promise that. No one can promise that. Nathan leaned forward, intensity radiating from every line of his body. You are right. I cannot promise that things will not get messy or complicated, but I can promise that I care about her, that I respect her, that I will never intentionally hurt her. And I can promise that I came to you directly because your friendship means too much to me to sneak around behind your back. Marcus was quiet for a long time, staring at his untouched burger. When he finally spoke, his voice was measured. I need time to process this. I am not saying no, but I am not saying yes either. I just need to think. That is fair. And Nathan, if you hurt her best friend or not, I will destroy you. I would expect nothing less. They finished lunch in uncomfortable near silence, and Nathan left feeling like he had just walked through a minefield without knowing if he had triggered an explosion. He called Tessa as soon as he got back to his car. How did it go? She asked immediately. He did not hit me, so that is good. But he is not happy. He says he needs time. Tessa sighed. I figured as much. Marcus has always been overprotective. I will talk to him. Maybe give him a day or two first. Let him sit with it. I hate this. I hate that something that feels so right has to cause problems. I know. But we will figure it out. We have to. Over the next week, Nathan existed in a strange limbo. He and Tessa talked every night, long phone conversations that stretched past midnight, but they did not see each other in person. Marcus was not returning his calls, and the silence felt ominous. Finally, 8 days after their lunch, Marcus showed up at Nathan's office unannounced. We need to talk, he said, and Nathan's stomach dropped. They went to the conference room for privacy, sitting across from each other at the long table. Marcus looked tired, like he had not been sleeping well. I talked to Tessa, Marcus started, and to Claire, and to my mom, actually, though Tessa probably is going to kill me for that. What did your mom say? She said she has been waiting for you two to figure out you were perfect for each other since Tessa graduated college. Marcus laughed without humor. Apparently, everyone saw this coming except me. Marcus, let me finish. I spent the last week being pissed off and feeling betrayed. My best friend and my sister going behind my back. But then I actually thought about it, about who you are and what you mean to our family. And I realized I was being an idiot. Nathan hardly dared to hope. Yeah. You are the best man I know, Nathan. You are loyal and honest, and you work harder than anyone I've ever met. If Tessa is going to be with someone, there is literally no one I would trust more than you. Marcus's voice roughened with emotion. It is just weird, okay? It is going to take some getting used to. But I can see how you look at her and how she looks at you, and I would have to be blind not to recognize that this is real. Relief washed over Nathan so powerfully it was almost dizzying. Thank you. Seriously, thank you. Do not thank me yet. I have conditions. Name them. First, no PDA at family gatherings. I do not need to see you two making out at Christmas dinner. Second, if you propose, you ask me first. Old-fashioned, whatever, but she is my sister. And third, if this somehow does not work out, you both promise not to make me choose sides. Deal. All of it deal. Marcus stood up, extending his hand across the table. When Nathan shook it, Marcus pulled him into a hug that felt like absolution. Take care of her, Marcus said quietly. She acts tough, but she feels everything deeply. She has been hurt before. I will spend every day making sure she knows how much she matters to me. Okay. Good. Now get out of here and go call your girlfriend. She has been texting me every 3 hours asking if I have talked to you yet. Nathan left the office with a lightness he had not felt in over a week. He called Tessa from the car, not wanting to wait even a moment longer. He said yes, Nathan told her the second she answered. Marcus gave us his blessing. The sound she made was pure joy. Really, he is really okay with this. He has conditions, but yes, we are good. I am still in Portland packing, but I will be back in Chicago next week for good. Can I see you then? Properly, like an actual date. Tessa, I am taking you to the best restaurant in the city, and then I am going to kiss you in public like I have been wanting to do for 4 years. If that sounds like an actual date to you. Her laugh was warm and bright. It sounds perfect. The week until Tessa's return felt interminable. Nathan distracted himself with work, finalizing a major acquisition and overseeing the start of construction on a new development. But his mind kept drifting to the future, to possibilities he had not let himself consider before. When Tessa finally flew back to Chicago, Nathan picked her up from the airport. She came through the arrivals gate with 2 large suitcases and a backpack, looking exhausted and beautiful. He kissed her right there in front of everyone, not caring who saw. Hi, she said when they broke apart, slightly breathless. Hi yourself. Ready to start your new life? With you? Absolutely. They spent the weekend moving Tessa into her apartment, the one Nathan owned in Gold Coast. He had made sure everything was perfect before her arrival, the promised renovations conveniently delayed so she could settle in without disruption. She did not call him on it, though the knowing looks she gave him suggested she understood exactly what he had done. Their first official date was on Saturday night. Nathan took her to Alinea, the 3 Michelin star restaurant that was nearly impossible to get reservations for. He had called in a favor from the owner, another business connection from his years building his real estate empire. Tessa wore a deep blue dress that made her eyes luminous, her hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. Nathan could not stop looking at her, even as they worked through the elaborate multi-course tasting menu. This is incredible, Tessa said after a particularly inventive dish involving edible balloons filled with helium and green apple taffy. Also, completely ridiculous, but in the best way. I wanted our first date to be memorable. Nathan, our first date could have been hot dogs from a street vendor, and it would have been memorable. I am just happy to finally be here with you publicly, without having to hide what I am feeling. He reached across the table, lacing his fingers through hers. I spent so long convincing myself this could never happen. Being with you now feels like a miracle I do not entirely deserve. You deserve everything good in this world. You have worked so hard to build something meaningful, to create opportunities and homes for people. You are allowed to have happiness too. You make me happy, Nathan said simply. Happier than I have been in years, maybe ever. The dinner lasted 3 hours, an elaborate culinary journey that felt almost secondary to the conversation flowing between them. They talked about everything. Her new position starting next week, his plans for the company, the upcoming wedding preparations that would throw them together constantly now that Marcus knew about their relationship. Claire wants to have a wedding party dinner next month, Tessa mentioned. Fair warning, she is probably going to seat us together and make pointed comments about romance being in the air. I can handle that, can you? Because my mom is going to be there too, and according to Marcus, she has apparently been shipping us for years. Nathan groaned. Your mom has been what? Shipping us? You know, romantically pairing us in her mind. Apparently she told Marcus we were going to end up together since I was like 22. That is mortifying and also kind of sweet. That is Patricia Sterling in a nutshell. After dinner, they walked along the lakeshore despite the March chill. The city lights reflected off the dark water, and Nathan pulled Tessa close against the wind. She fit perfectly under his arm, like she had been designed to be exactly there. Can I ask you something? Tessa said after they had walked in comfortable silence for a while. Anything? That night on the balcony 4 years ago, before I moved to Portland, would you have kissed me then if Marcus had not interrupted? Nathan stopped walking, turning to face her fully. Yes. I was about 3 seconds away from it when he called us back inside. Then you left for Portland 2 days later, and I told myself it was for the best, that the distance would make it easier. I almost did not take the Portland job because of you, Tessa admitted. I was terrified of leaving Chicago, of putting 3 states between us. But I was also terrified of staying, of having to watch you date other people while I pretended I did not care. I never seriously dated anyone, not really. Everyone I went out with was just a distraction from the person I actually wanted. We wasted so much time. Maybe we needed that time to be ready for this. You needed to go to Portland to do that important work and figure out who you were outside of Chicago. And I needed to build the company to the point where I felt secure enough to risk everything for what I really wanted. Tessa reached up, cupping his face in her hands. And what do you really want, Nathan Bennett? You, just you, for as long as you will have me. She kissed him then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they finally headed back to his car, Nathan felt like his life had finally clicked into focus after years of being slightly out of alignment. The next few months passed in a blur of happiness, punctuated by wedding planning chaos. Nathan and Tessa quickly fell into an easy rhythm, balancing their demanding careers with the giddy intensity of a new relationship. He showed up at her apartment with coffee on the mornings she had early meetings, and she brought him dinner at the office when he was working late on a complicated negotiation. Marcus adjusted to their relationship with surprising grace, though he still occasionally made jokes about being traumatized by seeing his best friend and sister hold hands. Claire was thrilled, immediately drafting Tessa into helping with wedding plans and not so subtly asking Nathan about his long-term intentions. You are going to propose, right? Claire cornered him at the wedding venue during a planning meeting. Please tell me you are going to propose. I cannot handle it if we get Tessa all the way back to Chicago and you break her heart. I am not going to break her heart, Nathan said with exasperated fondness. And yes, eventually, I plan to propose, but we have only been officially together for 3 months. I am trying not to rush things. 3 months plus 4 years of pining. That is basically 3 years in relationship time. That is not how time works, Claire. It is exactly how time works. Just promise me you will not wait too long. She is crazy about you, you know. I have never seen her this happy. Nathan knew exactly what Claire meant. He had never seen Tessa this happy either, all lit up from the inside with contentment and possibility. It matched what he felt, this sense of rightness that permeated everything now. Tessa's new position at Northwestern Memorial was challenging and rewarding in equal measure. She came home exhausted most nights, emotionally drained from the intensity of trauma work, but fulfilled in a way that made Nathan's chest ache with pride. She was building something important, developing protocols that would help people in their darkest moments find pathways to healing. "We got approved for the additional funding," she told him one night over dinner at his place. He had recently started cooking for her, discovering a talent he had not known he possessed. "Which means I can hire 2 more therapists and expand the program to include pediatric trauma patients." "That is incredible. You must be thrilled." "I am. It is exactly what I hoped for when I took this job." She paused, playing with her wine glass. "Sometimes I cannot believe this is my life now. The work I have always wanted, living in my hometown again, dating someone who actually understands why this matters so much to me." "Of course I understand. You are saving lives, Tessa. Maybe not in the dramatic emergency room way, but you are giving people back their ability to live, to function, to hope. That matters more than any building I could ever construct. Do not sell yourself short. You are creating homes and communities. That matters too." They had these conversations often, each insisting the other's work was more important, both meaning it sincerely. It was one of the things Nathan loved most about their relationship. They pushed each other to be better, to think more deeply about the impact they wanted to have on the world. As Marcus and Claire's wedding approached, Nathan found himself thinking more seriously about his future. He had always been driven by professional goals, measurable targets he could check off as he built his fortune. But Tessa had shifted his perspective, making him realize that the numbers in his bank account meant nothing compared to the life he wanted to build with her. He started looking at rings 3 months before the wedding, which felt absurdly fast by conventional standards, but somehow exactly right. He knew what he wanted. Something elegant but not ostentatious, with a vintage feel that matched Tessa's aesthetic. He found it at a small jewelry shop in Wicker Park, an Art Deco emerald-cut diamond set in platinum with delicate filigree on the band. The jeweler, an older man named Robert who had been in the business for 40 years, smiled knowingly as Nathan examined the ring. "This is the one," Nathan said with certainty. "For someone special, I assume. The most special person I have ever known." Robert began the paperwork, then paused. "Can I give you some unsolicited advice from someone who has been married for 38 years, please?" The ring matters, but what matters more is showing up every single day ready to choose her again. Love is not just the grand romantic gestures. It is the small, consistent acts of care and respect that build a life together. If you can do that, you will make it. Nathan thought about Robert's words as he left the shop, the ring safely tucked in his jacket pocket. He thought about his parents, still happily married after 40 years, and the Sterling family, weathering challenges together with humor and grace. He thought about the kind of husband he wanted to be, the kind of life he wanted to build. He was not going to propose before Marcus's wedding. That felt like stealing thunder that should belong to his friend and Claire. But afterward, once the celebration was over and life settled back into normalcy, he would ask Tessa Sterling to marry him. And he was terrified and exhilarated by how much he wanted her to say yes. The weeks before the wedding passed in a flurry of bachelor and bachelorette parties, rehearsal dinners, and last-minute crises that seemed to multiply exponentially. Nathan gave a speech at the bachelor party that had Marcus teary-eyed and grateful, talking about friendship and loyalty, and finding the person who made you want to be your best self. "That was beautiful," Tessa told him later that night when he showed up at her apartment, slightly drunk and full of sentimental affection. "Marcus called me crying. He said you are the brother he chose, and he is grateful every day that you came into his life." "I feel the same way," Nathan said, pulling her close. Your family saved me in a lot of ways. When I met Marcus freshman year, I was this angry kid from a working-class background trying to prove I belonged at a fancy university. Your parents welcomed me into their home, treated me like I mattered. Your mom made sure I had home-cooked meals during exams, and your dad gave me advice about navigating professional environments where I would be underestimated because of where I came from. They gave me a template for what family could look like. They love you. We all do. I love you, Nathan said, the words still feeling new and precious even though he had said them dozens of times over the past months. I love you so much it scares me sometimes. Scares you how? Like I am not entirely sure what I did to deserve this, to deserve you. And I am terrified of doing something to mess it up. Tessa pulled back to look at him seriously. Nathan, you need to understand something. I am not some prize you won through good behavior. I am choosing you every day because you are kind and brilliant and you make me laugh and you care about things that matter. You are not going to mess this up by being imperfect. You are only going to mess it up if you stop being honest with me. I can do honest. Good. Then honestly, how drunk are you right now? Honestly? Pretty drunk. Marcus kept ordering shots. She laughed, guiding him to the couch. Come on, let us get some water in you before you pass out. Nathan let her take care of him, marveling at how natural it felt. This was not some fantasy relationship where everything was always perfect and romantic. It was real and messy and infinitely better than anything he had imagined. The morning of Marcus and Claire's wedding dawned bright and clear, one of those perfect late spring days that felt designed for celebrations. Nathan spent the morning with Marcus and the groomsmen, helping with last-minute preparations and keeping the groom calm. I am not nervous, Marcus insisted, even as he checked his reflection in the mirror for the 15th time. You are allowed to be nervous, Nathan said. You are about to commit to spending the rest of your life with someone. That is a big deal. Are you nervous about that? About commitment? Nathan thought about the ring currently locked in his office safe, waiting for the right moment. No. When you know someone is right for you, really right, the commitment is not scary. It is exciting. We are talking about Tessa now, are not we? Maybe. Marcus adjusted his tie, meeting Nathan's eyes in the mirror. You are going to propose to my sister. It was not a question. Nathan decided honesty was the best approach. Not today. This is your day, but yes, soon. I wanted you to hear it from me first. For a moment, Marcus was quiet. Then he turned around, gripping Nathan's shoulder. You have my blessing. You have had it from the moment I realized this was real between you two. Just promise me one thing. What is that? Promise me that when you do propose, you will do it somewhere meaningful. Tessa hates generic romance. She will want something that reflects who you are together. I promise. The ceremony was beautiful and emotional, held in a botanical garden with flowers blooming everywhere. Nathan stood beside Marcus at the altar, watching Claire walk down the aisle in a dress that made her look like she had stepped out of a fairy tale. But his eyes kept drifting to the bridesmaids, to Tessa in a pale lavender dress that made her eyes look impossibly green. She caught him staring and smiled, a private expression that was just for him. In that moment, Nathan knew exactly when and where he would propose, not some elaborate public display or generic romantic setting. Somewhere that mattered to both of them, somewhere that represented the foundation of what they had built. The reception was joyous chaos, speeches and toasts and dancing that went long into the night. Nathan danced with Tessa during every slow song, holding her close and feeling grateful beyond measure for the series of unlikely events that had led them here. You look happy, Tessa observed, her head resting on his shoulder as they swayed to some classic ballad. I am happy. Today is perfect. Marcus and Claire are perfect, and I get to hold you in front of everyone without feeling guilty about it. No more hiding." "No more hiding," Nathan agreed. "Just us, figuring out this future together." "Speaking of the future," Tessa said, a teasing note entering her voice. "Claire told me she cornered you about proposing. Please tell me you did not let her bully you into any grand plans involving flash mobs or surprise parties." "I would never subject you to a flash mob. I know you better than that." "Good. Because honestly, when you propose, I just want it to be us. Somewhere meaningful. No audience necessary." Nathan smiled against her hair, thrilled that she had just confirmed exactly what Marcus had said. "I will keep that in mind." "Are you saying you are planning to propose?" "I am saying I am planning a lot of things when it comes to our future." "Proposing is definitely on the list." "Nathan Bennett, are you trying to hint at something?" "Maybe. Is it working?" She pulled back to look at him, eyes sparkling. "Maybe, but I am going to pretend to be surprised whenever you actually ask, just so you know. I have been imagining this since I was 24 years old, and I want the full experience." "You have been imagining this since you were 24. I told you. I have had feelings for you for a long time. I might have occasionally fantasized about what it would be like if you proposed." "Hypothetically, of course." Nathan kissed her right there on the dance floor, not caring who saw. The song swelled around them, and everything felt possible. 2 months later, on a warm July evening, Nathan took Tessa back to the place where everything had started. Not the balcony at Marcus's apartment where they had first kissed, but further back. To Northwestern University, the campus where he and Marcus had met as 18-year-olds trying to find their place in the world. "Why are we here?" Tessa asked as they walked through the familiar quads. "Humor me." He led her to a specific spot near the library, a bench under an old oak tree. Tessa looked around, confused at first, then recognition dawned. "This is where I met you," she said slowly. "Sophomore year, I came to visit Marcus during Parents' Weekend. You were sitting right here, studying for some exam." "Organic chemistry," Nathan confirmed. "Your mom dragged Marcus away to go look at some exhibit, and you sat down next to me and started asking about what I was studying. We ended up talking for 3 hours about everything except chemistry." "I remember. You told me about growing up in Ohio, about how you and your dad used to flip houses together before you came to Northwestern. That was the first time I really saw you as a person instead of just my brother's friend." "That was the day I started falling for you," Nathan said quietly. "I did not recognize it then. I thought I was just enjoying talking to a smart, interesting person. But looking back, that was the moment. You asked me what I really wanted to build, not just physically but with my life, and no one had ever asked me that before." "What did you say?" "I said I wanted to create spaces where people could feel safe, where they could build their own dreams. You told me that was beautiful, that the world needed more people who thought about construction as care rather than just commerce." Tessa's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I cannot believe you remember that conversation. I remember everything about you." Nathan took both her hands, his heart pounding. "This is where it started for me, Tessa. This bench, this tree, this conversation about dreams and purpose. And I know we have had to take a long, complicated path to get here, but I do not regret any of it, because it led us to now, to this moment where I can finally ask you what I have wanted to ask for months." He pulled the ring box from his pocket, dropping to one knee on the grass in front of the bench. Tessa gasped, one hand flying to her mouth. "Tessa Sterling, you are the most extraordinary person I have ever known. You are brilliant and compassionate, and you make me want to be better every single day. I love your analytical mind and your artist's heart, and the way you fight for people who need someone in their corner. I love that you challenge me and support me and see me more clearly than anyone else ever has. I want to spend the rest of my life choosing you, building a life with you, creating a future that neither of us could have imagined alone. Will you marry me?" "Yes," Tessa said immediately, tears streaming down her face now. "Yes, absolutely yes." Nathan slid the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, then stood and pulled her into a kiss that felt like every promise he had ever wanted to make. Around them, a few students walking by started clapping, but Nathan barely registered it. His entire world had narrowed to the woman in his arms, to the yes that echoed between them like a benediction. "I love you," Tessa said against his lips. "I love you so much. This is perfect. This is exactly what I would have wanted. Marcus gave me advice about making it meaningful. My brother has been surprisingly helpful with our relationship, considering how weird he initially was about it. He called me 3 times to make sure I was doing this right." Tessa laughed, pulling back to look at her ring. It caught the evening light, throwing sparkles across her face. "It is beautiful. How did you know this is exactly what I would have chosen?" "Because I know you. I pay attention." They sat on the bench for a long time, wrapped in each other, talking about the future they would build together. Tessa wanted a small wedding, intimate and meaningful rather than grand. Nathan wanted whatever made her happy. They talked about timelines and logistics, about whether they would live in her apartment or his, about the life they were choosing to create. "I want kids," Tessa said at one point, slightly hesitant. "Eventually. I know we have not talked about it much, but it is important to me." "I want kids too," Nathan assured her. "A whole family. Maybe in a few years, once we are both settled in our careers." "That sounds perfect." They called Marcus together from the bench, putting him on speakerphone. He answered on the first ring, clearly waiting for the news. "Well," Marcus demanded. "Did she say yes?" "She said yes," Nathan confirmed, grinning as Tessa laughed beside him. "Thank God." "Claire has been stressed about this for weeks. Where are you guys? We are coming to celebrate." "Northwestern campus near the library." "Of course you proposed there. That is so perfectly you two. Stay put. We will be there in 20 minutes." Marcus and Claire arrived with champagne and an enthusiasm that was infectious. They toasted on the quad as the sun set, surrounded by the ghosts of who they had all been when they were younger, celebrating the people they had become. "Speech," Claire demanded, pointing at Nathan. "I already gave my speech to Tessa when I proposed. Give it again. I need to hear the romantic version, not Marcus's secondhand retelling." Nathan laughed but complied, pulling Tessa close as he spoke. "I fell in love with my best friend's sister, which should have been a disaster. But instead, it turned out to be the best decision I ever made, because Tessa makes everything better. She makes me better, and I cannot wait to spend the rest of my life proving that she made the right choice in saying yes." "Okay, now I am crying," Claire said, fanning her face. "Marcus, give me a tissue." They stayed at Northwestern until the campus security gently suggested they move along, then relocated to Marcus and Claire's apartment to continue celebrating. Nathan watched Tessa talk animatedly with her brother and sister-in-law, her ring catching the light every time she gestured, and felt a contentment so profound it was almost overwhelming. The next year passed in a blur of wedding planning and career milestones. Tessa's program at Northwestern Memorial expanded beyond her wildest expectations, earning national recognition for its innovative approaches to trauma treatment. Nathan completed his largest development project yet, a mixed-use complex that provided affordable housing alongside high-end retail, exactly the kind of socially conscious construction Tessa had once told him the world needed. They got married on a crisp October afternoon in the botanical garden where Marcus and Claire had wed, coming full circle in the most beautiful way. The ceremony was small, just close family and friends, exactly as Tessa had wanted. She walked down the aisle to a string quartet playing Pachelbel's canon, wearing a simple ivory dress that made Nathan's breath catch. When it was time for vows, Nathan spoke from the heart without notes. "Tessa, you asked me once what I wanted to build with my life. I told you I wanted to create spaces where people felt safe, where they could build their dreams. What I did not realize then was that I was really describing you. You are my safe space, the foundation on which I have built every dream that matters. You are my home, my partner, my best friend. I promise to choose you every day, to support your work and your passions, to be honest even when it is hard, and to love you with everything I have for as long as I live." There was not a dry eye in the audience, including Tessa's, who had to take a moment to compose herself before delivering her own vows. "Nathan, I have loved you in secret and in public, from a distance and up close, but nothing compares to loving you as my husband. You have taught me that the right person is not the one who complicates your life, but the one who makes everything simpler and clearer. You are my clarity, my calm in every storm, my reminder that the best things in life are worth waiting for. I promise to challenge you and support you, to respect your work and share your dreams, to be your partner in every sense of the word. Thank you for being patient enough to let us find our way to this moment." The reception was joyous and chaotic, filled with terrible dancing and heartfelt toasts. Marcus gave a speech that managed to be both hilarious and moving, talking about watching his best friend and sister fall in love, and realizing he had gained not just a brother-in-law but a complete family unit. "Nathan once told me that Tessa was off limits," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "And technically, he was right. She was off limits because she deserved someone exceptional, someone who would value her for the incredible person she is. I just did not realize that someone exceptional was standing right beside me the whole time. Nathan, you are the best man I know in every sense of that phrase. Take care of my sister, though honestly, I think she is the one who is going to be taking care of you." "Absolutely accurate," Tessa called out, and the room erupted in laughter. For their honeymoon, they went to Italy, spending 2 weeks exploring Florence and Rome and the Amalfi Coast. They ate incredible food and drank too much wine, and wandered through museums where Tessa would get lost in Renaissance paintings, while Nathan watched her with undisguised adoration. "You are supposed to be looking at the art," she teased him in the Uffizi gallery, catching him staring at her instead of the Botticelli behind her. "I am looking at art, the most beautiful piece in the whole museum. That is incredibly cheesy. You love it." "I really do," she admitted, kissing him in front of the Birth of Venus. They returned to Chicago sun bronzed and relaxed, ready to start their married life in earnest. They had decided to move into a house Nathan had recently purchased in Lincoln Park, a historic graystone that needed work but had incredible bones. Tessa threw herself into decorating, mixing her artistic sensibility with Nathan's more minimalist preferences to create something uniquely theirs. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Nathan continued expanding his company, but he made sure to maintain balance, to be present for dinners with Tessa and weekends where work was forbidden. Tessa's program grew, and she started getting invited to speak at conferences across the country. They supported each other through stressful deadlines and difficult days, celebrating victories and weathering setbacks as a team. 2 years into their marriage, Tessa came home from work looking both terrified and exhilarated. "I am pregnant," she said without preamble, standing in the doorway of Nathan's home office. Nathan looked up from his computer, the words taking a moment to register. Then he was out of his chair, crossing the room in 3 long strides to pull her into his arms. "You are pregnant." We are having a baby. I am pregnant. We are having a baby. Tessa started crying, whether from happiness or fear or hormones, Nathan could not tell. This is good, right? We said we wanted kids, but it is earlier than we planned, and my program is at a critical stage, and this is better than good, Nathan interrupted, cupping her face in his hands. This is incredible. We will figure out the timing. We will figure out everything. We are having a baby, Tessa. Their daughter, Emily Patricia Bennett, was born on a snowy December morning after 14 hours of labor that tested both Nathan's nerves and Tessa's pain tolerance. She had her mother's green eyes and her father's dark hair, and Nathan fell in love all over again the moment the nurse placed her in his arms. "She is perfect," he whispered, unable to look away from the tiny face peering up at him. "She is ours," Tessa said from the hospital bed, exhausted and radiant. "We made an actual person, Nathan." Marcus and Claire visited later that day, bringing balloons and stuffed animals and so much enthusiasm that the nurse had to tell them to quiet down. "I am an uncle," Marcus said with wonder, carefully holding Emily like she was made of glass. "This is insane. When did we all get old enough to have kids?" "We are not old," Tessa protested. "We are mature and responsible." "You say that now. Wait until she starts crying at 3 in the morning," Claire said with the knowing tone of someone who had already been through this with their own son. Parenthood was harder than Nathan had anticipated and more rewarding than he could have imagined. The sleepless nights and constant worry were balanced by Emily's first smile, her first laugh, the way she would grip his finger with her tiny hand and make him feel like the luckiest man alive. Tessa navigated working motherhood with characteristic determination, taking maternity leave, and then transitioning back part-time before eventually resuming her full schedule. They hired a nanny to help during work hours, but Nathan made sure to rearrange his schedule so he could be home for bedtime most nights. He had not built an empire just to miss out on raising his daughter. When Emily was 18 months old, Tessa announced she was pregnant again. Their son, Marcus Richard Bennett, arrived the following spring, completing their family in a way that felt almost choreographed in its perfection. "We named him after you," Nathan told Marcus at the hospital, his best friend looking stunned as he held his tiny namesake. "You named him after me," Marcus repeated, voice cracking. "Nathan, you did not have to do that." "Yes, I did. You gave me your family when I needed one. You gave me your blessing when I fell in love with your sister. You have been there through everything. This kid is going to grow up knowing he is named after someone exceptional. Now you are making me cry in front of my nephew. This is emotional warfare." The years that followed were full and chaotic and beautiful. Nathan watched his children grow, celebrating milestones and weathering challenges. Emily inherited her mother's artistic talents and her father's work ethic, while Marcus Jr. was all chaotic energy and infectious enthusiasm, just like his uncle. Tessa's program became a model for trauma-informed care that was replicated in hospitals across the country. She published papers and gave keynotes and changed countless lives, but she always made sure to be present for school pickups and family dinners. Nathan continued building his company, but he also started teaching occasional classes at Northwestern's business school, wanting to give back to the institution that had given him so much. On their 10-year wedding anniversary, Nathan took Tessa back to the bench at Northwestern where he had proposed. The tree had grown taller, the campus had changed, but the bench remained the same. 10 years, Tessa said, leaning against him as they watched students hurry past. "Can you believe it? Barely. Some days it feels like we just got married yesterday. Other days I cannot remember what my life was like before you. Any regrets? Not a single one. You?" Well, I do occasionally regret that you saw me projectile vomit during pregnancy. That was not my finest moment, Nathan laughed, pulling her closer. I have seen you at your worst and your best, and I love every version of you. Though I could have done without the vomiting, you are right about that. What do you think your 24-year-old self would say if he could see us now? Nathan considered the question seriously. I think he would be amazed, and probably terrified. That kid was so focused on proving himself, on building security through money and success. He had no idea that the real security, the thing that would actually matter, was going to be sitting next to him on a bench talking about organic chemistry. You think we would have ended up together if Marcus had not introduced us? If we had just met randomly as adults? Absolutely. Maybe it would have taken longer, maybe the path would have been different, but yes, you are the person I would have found in any version of my life. That is a very romantic thing to say, Mr. Bennett. I am a very romantic person, Mrs. Bennett. They sat there as the sun set. Two people who had built a life from friendship and patience and love. Around them, the campus buzzed with the energy of young people just beginning their journeys, full of hope and ambition, and dreams they had not yet learned to name. We should go, Tessa said eventually. The kids are with my parents, and you know Marcus Jr. is going to have them exhausted. That kid is a menace. I love him so much. He is your carbon copy. You have only yourself to blame. They walked back to the car hand in hand, already planning the family dinner they would have tomorrow, discussing Emily's upcoming school play and the new development Nathan was considering, and whether they should finally book that trip to Japan they had been talking about for years. The drive home took them through the Chicago streets Nathan knew like the back of his hand, past buildings he had developed and neighborhoods he had helped revitalize. But none of those accomplishments compared to the life waiting for him in Lincoln Park. A house full of noise and love, children who called him Dad, a wife who still made his heart race after a decade of marriage. When they pulled into the driveway, the porch light was on, warm and welcoming. Nathan killed the engine but did not immediately get out, taking a moment to appreciate the scene before him. His home, his family, his future, all wrapped up in the historic graystone he had carefully restored. What are you thinking about? Tessa asked, studying his profile in the dim light. Just that I am grateful. For you, for our kids, for this life we have built together, for Marcus being stubborn enough to stay friends with me even when I fell for his sister. He knew before we did, you know. Marcus told me years later that he always suspected you had feelings for me. He was just waiting for us to figure it out. Smart man, your brother, the smartest, takes one to know one. Nathan leaned over and kissed her, soft and familiar and still capable of making everything else fade away. When they finally broke apart, Tessa smiled. Come on, husband. Let us go home. They walked up the path together, ready for whatever came next, secure in the knowledge that they would face it side by side. Nathan opened the door, and they stepped into the warmth of their house, into the life they had chosen, into a future that had once seemed impossibly off-limits, but had turned out to be exactly where they were meant to be all along. The off-limits had become his everything, his limit in the best possible way, defining the boundaries of a love that had overcome every obstacle to create something extraordinary. And as Nathan hung up his coat and heard his children's laughter echoing from upstairs where they had clearly conned their grandparents into one more bedtime story, he knew with absolute certainty that every moment of waiting, every complication and challenge, had been worth it. This was what he had been building toward his entire life, even when he had not known it. Not the company or the money or the professional success, though those had their place. But this, a family, a home, a love that had transformed from an impossible dream into the foundation of everything that mattered. Nathan found Tessa in the kitchen, already making tea and checking messages from her team at the hospital. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder, and she leaned back into him with the ease of 1,000 similar moments. "I love you," he said simply, "because some things never got old." "I love you too," she replied, turning in his arms to kiss him properly. Now and always. Now and always. It was a promise they had made 10 years ago and would keep making every day for the rest of their lives. Two people who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful from the courage to take a chance on the impossible. The story that had started with forbidden feelings and careful distance had become a love story for the ages. Proof that sometimes the best things in life are worth waiting for, worth fighting for, worth risking everything to claim. And as Nathan and Tessa headed upstairs to rescue her parents from their over-enthusiastic children, ready to begin another ordinary, extraordinary evening in the life they had created together, he could not imagine wanting to be anywhere else. This was home. This was family. This was love. And it was perfect.